Greetings, Warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the Skirmish Miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. We're back with another faction review, joined by Chris. How's it going, Chris?
It's going good, Rodge. How about you?
Good, yeah. So we know, Chris, you were in Poland before. You've helped out with the Polish Grand Melee stuff, I believe. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Did you help?
Yeah.
And you've done at least one faction review previously, and you've been in a couple videos, so it's good to see you back. How you been overall?
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Yeah, pretty good. We've been getting a fair few games of Saga in. We've had a regular Saga gaming night at our friendly local gaming store every Thursday since I think about mid-July, so that's been really cool.
Yeah.
Got a few new players interested in the game. I think it was last week we finally got to the point of having two games going on simultaneously.
Ooh, huzzah. That's an achievement.
Yeah, so that was a milestone, and
awesome.
yeah, so
you guys are playing bunch of Age of Magic, and so you graciously volunteered to lend your expertise on the Horde, and
Indeed.
This is awesome. I like the Horde. I've never gotten a chance to play it. My Warhammer collection just doesn't line up with like the Horde choices. So I think it's a good board. I think it's fun. The latest fact stuff. Oof.
Oh yeah.
God, tasty. Yeah, those are some tasty treats. Studio Tomahawk delivered to you. So we're going to jump into that. But one kind of interesting thing I kind of want to chit-chat with you a little bit was you guys are doing a lot of 6-point games of Age of Magic. So how... You said you have played a lot of 8-point Age of Magic. So how are the 6-point games different? Are they different at all? Is there a different feel?
Yeah, there is. So they're different from an 8-point game of Age of Magic, and they're actually different from an 8-point game of historical Saga in a lot of ways.
Okay.
I'd say they're definitely faster. 8-point game of Age of Magic, and playing at the 6-point level, since we've basically been working with a lot of veteran gamers, but players who are new to Saga, it's just been a good way for people to really not just learn the game, but really start figuring out the factions, figuring out the battle boards, trying stuff out, trying out different army list configurations, and then we can keep adding to things. We can keep adding things as we go. So in that way, it's been different from an 8-point Age of Magic game. It kind of helped to, shall we say, relieve one of the issues that, like, I remember in my local gaming community in Poznań, when we first started playing Age of Magic, we got really excited and we played a few events in Age of Magic, and then it kind of got put back on the back burner because just the games were slower. It seemed a bit more cumbersome than historical Saga, and just people lost interest. Whereas, like, I figured if we kept it at the 6-point level, we'd be able to keep it fast, we'd be able to keep it fun, and so far that's worked out. We'll definitely be aiming to do regular 8-point games before too much longer. Everybody's also sort of building up their war bands.
Yeah, it takes a little bit more to get up to those 8 points. Yeah, that sounds great. It's one of those things. You're 2 points less. But it's like, those 2 points, 25% more points, but probably like 40% more time, or 50% more time of deploying and messing around. So
the way I think about it this way is that in historical Saga, the two main things you have to figure out for your faction is figuring out how the battle board works, and figuring out how to make an army list that complements the battle board. And then in addition to that, playing your force and playing the warband and playing the battle board to a particular scenario. So like you also have to figure out the scenario conditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to Age of Magic, you add new unit types. You add the Sacred Ground. You add the magic system. So it can be kind of like, I remember when I started playing Age of Magic, it was just really overwhelming all at once. Like I remember I actually ran an Age of Magic demo game at a convention, thinking, oh, this would be awesome. You know, draw in some Warhammer, some Warhammer gamers to Saga, and it was fun. But I also realized how complicated Age of Magic was, and ended up thinking that it was actually kind of a bad idea to do that, because like I thought because I knew historical Saga quite well that I could run Age of Magic as a demo game with no issues, and that ended up not being the case. So
yeah, there's a lot to it. Yeah, depending.
Yeah.
Especially if you have no background in Saga at all, kind of trying to grok it all. So I like the idea of just adding those pieces slowly, building your way up and getting to it. So yeah, I got some games next week. I got a demo lined up against somebody with fantasy Age of Magic. So yeah, I think I might just do 6 points now and just kind of keep it.
Well, like, interestingly, I also saw a note even in, I think somewhere at the beginning of the Age of Magic book, that even the author of the book said, so try a game in 4 points first, and then try a game in 6 points. And then once you figure that out, try a game in 8 points. So like, even so, that was, I completely skipped over that note the first time I read the book. And as I was rereading it, I just noticed that and said, okay, let's try that, see what happens.
There's probably a reason he put those words in there. Maybe I should.
More than likely.
All right. Well, let's jump into the Horde discussion proper here. So, as with Age of Magic, there's so many options here, and we'll do our best to kind of go through these one by one. You can maybe talk about what your favorites are, Chris, but obviously there's going to be more than one way to build a list and run this stuff, which is one of the great things. But so our Warlord can be on an animal. The Beast can be represented by a War Chariot, but it doesn't follow those rules. It's just a beast. And you could, if you're on foot, you could give yourself the heavy weapon. Are you a Warlord on a Beast kind of guy, Chris, or do you need that we obey to keep things moving?
Yeah, I have been fielding my Warlord on foot, just sword and board. Basically, my assumption was I need him to be a commander rather than a fighter in this context. So especially with 6 points in Age of Magic, if you have the champion, you oftentimes have one Saga die less than you would in like a 6 point historical game. So the we obey from the Warlord is really, really helpful in a lot of cases. So
the extra resilience of the Beast and range and stuff is really nice, but you really do miss that we obey even in 8 point games of Saga Age of Magic. So with my Under Earthers, I've been taking the guy on foot. With the demons, I've liked him on the Beast. So it really is kind of just a play style kind of thing. I think they're both pretty good. So,
it definitely is.
Do you take him on foot or is he mounted?
I take him on foot. I originally printed and converted and painted an Uruk-hai commander on foot and an Uruk-hai commander mounted. And what I did, I had them based individually, and then I had like a banner bearer that I would put next to whichever one was representing the Warlord, so you can see which one it is.
Perfect. Yeah, good deal.
And I kind of wanted on the one hand, it kind of felt like right to have the Warlord be the one who was mounted, but in my games, I've actually found that having the Warlord on foot and keeping him surrounded with units, allowing him to use We Obey, but also bodyguards, and having the champion mounted so that he can just jet off and either take out an objective or beat up like a finish off a unit or beat up some levy or something like that. That's a good way of that seems to be a good way of fielding him. Plus, I also figured that if I mounted the Warlord, then he was at risk of getting shot down, and given the fact that the two main factions I've been playing are Great Kingdoms, Sapphire Elves, and Lords of the Wild, I kind of didn't want him to be any more vulnerable to shooting than necessary.
Yeah, there's a few more ways to reach out and touch somebody in Age of Magic, so be it on foot, get that extra pip on the armor against shooting, and then I think there's at least one really good ability that is nice to close ranks with. So keeping yourself alive and kicking is a good call with the Warlord. So I like it. Now you mentioned Lieutenant. So he's a champion. He could be mounted on the animal or have a heavy weapon. And I like him. He's just got 2 more attacks. He's an aggression 6. He does have pride, so he has to charge the enemy Warlord if he can. So every once in a while, you'll probably declare a charge, and their opponents, if they're wise, will be like, well, actually, my Warlord is here. But I like that. I think 6 attacks is pretty good. The regular Lieutenant's 4. It's like, come on, 4. That's not enough. But 6 is good. So you mentioned, do you usually take the champ?
I always take the champ. Always take the champ. Always take him mounted, just as a mobile sort of glass cannon unit that I can I can use to take out some stuff and not really care what happens to him.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that. Compared to some of the other LTs, I think he's one of the better ones. It's fun.
It's also with the 4 attack dice, it's also he's the champion's the only one who's there to be a fighter. Like the Great Kingdom's captain, for example, he's not necessarily supposed to be there to be a fighter. He's just there to you're mainly banking on the additional We Obey, right?
Support abilities,
So
absolutely. So sorcerers for the Horde can take earth and metal, which are both very, very good lores. And obviously with Lords of the Wild and Earth, they have a few more tricks they can pull. But are you taking a sorcerer with your Horde?
I have, and in the one I've tried that in one game. I took a sorcerer in one game so far, and he actually got shot down before you could really do anything, which was a bummer because I had very lovingly converted and painted a miniature to represent Saruman because I'm playing an Uruk-hai force, so I wanted I had to have Saruman in the force, and I found a beautiful old Reaper figure. I converted it a bit. I painted it up and was so happy to have it on the table, and then it just got shot down. He just got shot down. Oh well.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with those sorcerers. Definitely, if you can, squeeze some Hearthguard in there next to them. Yeah. Save some hits if you can. Yeah, that's cool. I think there's a lot of great options. We're not going to get into the spells specifically. Where you were chatting, you can bring them up as you go along here. I guess. Do you have a 3 that you're favoriting right now?
I would say, I think Stoke Fury and Violence, or and there's another one from the Domain of Metal that I forget which one it is that I would basically. So Stoke Fury is. I think Stoke Fury is the one that gives the additional charge range.
Another short. Yep,
which is awesome for Horde. Violence, I think violence gives attack dice, so that's always useful.
There's a few that just make you fight better.
So basically, just the spells in metal that give you combat buffs. That's great. The one that I've considered taking, if I was going to field my orcs / Uruk-hai more as a Mordor force, I'd consider taking transformation, because then I can have a Nazgul on horseback and then transform him into a Nazgul on a fell beast, and that would just be funny.
That's such a great late game spell. Transforming into a warlord on a beast and just cleaning up these little units that finally fought through the enemy lines, and they're going to jump your wizard next turn. With their fatigue, they're a little smaller, and you just transform, and you bit off more than you can chew, little guys.
Yeah. Well, I did it I used that spell once. I was playing my Welsh as Lords of the Wild, and I had like an awesome red dragon that I'd built, and the dragon just caused all sorts of havoc. And then after a lot of just effort from my opponent, finally got taken down. Then a couple of turns later, I had my sorcerer transform into a dragon, and
he's back, baby.
Caused all sorts of so that was fun.
That's fun. Now, one thing I think, particularly with the Horde versus other factions here, is I think the Horde can do very well without a sorcerer. So I don't know how often you guys, maybe if you're playing smaller games, you don't see them as much, but I would say probably like about 90% of lists, in our area end up taking a sorcerer. And I think in many armies, be like, oh, you playing wild? Gotta take a sorcerer, bro. Under Earth, you gotta take a sorcerer. Undead, gotta take a sorcerer. But I think with the Horde, I think the battle board abilities and you're just pushing them in, you're fighting, and just having 8 more bodies really could be pretty valuable for at the end of the game, if you got one fresh unit. Versus the other guy, it can make a big difference. So, not necessarily a no-brainer, in my opinion, the way that it might be in other lores, or other factions, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that I think one of the things that makes the sorcerer optional is that, I would have to say limited experience, but what would make the sorcerer potentially optional is that I would think you're mainly using the spells that give you buffs in combat, and that's what the Horde battle board already does. So like
you've already got speed from that one ability. So Stoke Fury, you could say, well, you don't need that, and then you're already getting more attacks from all the abilities. So it's nice to double down on that for sure, getting super range and super killer abilities.
But it's definitely not required. I mean,
absolutely.
I think actually the transform ability could be the most interesting one, because I'd take it for purely fluffy reasons with a Mordor force, because it would just be the best. It's the only way I can think of to actually field a Nazgul on a fell beast with the board the way it is. But it would be fun, but also it would just potentially add an element of it'd be a bit of a trick play you could throw with the Horde. Like, the Horde is not very subtle, and having something subtle and tricky that you can suddenly throw at your opponent with them, that would be fun.
That sounds good to me. So speaking of monsters, Horde can take one single monster, which it's unfortunate, because there's actually, I would say, probably 4 battle board abilities that can like directly or indirectly buff them. If you're taking those spells, all the spells can affect them. So at 8 points, I think a monster, for me, probably Behemoth. Yeah, he's probably my favorite is what I take. Have you been taking a monster?
I haven't yet, mainly because there isn't like a fluffy monster, like a monster that I could take that would fit with the fluff of the warband, like Isengard and.
So you do an Isengard, Lord of the Rings, the army.
But if I field them as Mordor, I could quite happily do that, and they do have the. I did actually play a game with a friend way back when he fielded his Haradrim as the Horde, and he had the big Games Workshop Mumak as the war monster. So that thing was a pain to fight.
Yeah, there's a few different abilities that'll soup that sucker up. And the Horde can take as many creatures as they want, but they can't be flying creatures. So in Age of Magic, some people like the creatures, some don't. With this board in particular, I think there's a couple of good things that work with them. Have you been working in some creatures or no?
Not yet. I am considering. I am looking around for some good for some files for like Mordor trolls to print out though. So when I can find them, I probably will print some out and field them just to see how they work.
Okay. Yeah, they hit hard until they don't. Then they're dead.
Yeah.
They just keep going until they're gone. Hearthguards can be mounted on animals or equipped with heavy weapons or just the plain Janes. So have you been taking Hearthguards to keep the Warlord alive or just skipping over it?
Yes, I've been taking I generally take 1.5 points of Hearthguards with heavy weapons, so they can keep the Warlord alive, and also I can just have them charge in and smash stuff up as well. So
that is a very hitty unit for Age of Magic, I must say.
Yes.
12 attacks with a +1 to hit. And plenty of ways to get more than that. So, scary.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Warriors can be mounted on animals. They can have composite bows. And if they're not mounted, they can be equipped with heavy weapons. So one of my buds that runs the Horde, he does like the composite bow guys. Gives you a little something extra. You probably got some Warg riders, I'm assuming, maybe.
I do indeed. Yep.
Okay.
Same ones I entered in the paint contest, in the last paint contest, actually.
Okay.
So they're
these
I do have
fighter. Are they just the fighter, or did they have bows or not?
No, they are the ones with composite bows. I mean, I never really played with composite bows before this, so I know there's a particular people who play factions like the Mongols or the Huns or the Byzantines probably have more. It came to them more naturally. I've been struggling to find a use for them a bit, but they can still be fun as just something to keep your opponent irritated. So
so. To be clear, there isn't really anything on the board that would support a composite bow equipment choice specifically, but
there is. No.
Well, maybe there is, if you can say, but just in the general context of the board, you don't really have much shooting going on. So just having a little something in Age of Magic, just having a little shooting here and there is very handy.
Yeah.
For finishing off those creature and monster units that are exhausted, and because if you have to go into melee, that's a disproportionate amount of pain. You're going to be feeling. So if you can plink 3 shots on it and peel it off that way, it's a decent option. And then kind of. This is Scott, his idea was, they're going to die anyways. So, the 3+ armor, that doesn't matter, but they can still go in and attack and hit hard, like you want to, and they're going to die anyways. So, this way they can at least shoot and have give you some options. So
Yeah,
I'd encourage
definitely.
any Horde guy to take a look at that. The other option would be levies with bows, which is just a solid choice, no matter what you're playing. Do you have some gobbers with bows, Chris, or not?
Yep. Yeah, I do. It's I like taking them just because they don't have any abilities on the battle board that buff them, but I can, I can put them in a terrain feature in the middle of the board. Make sure I've got range and line of sight to multiple different units. I spend a dice per turn, or Warlords we obey, depending on the situation, and just they can pick away. They can soften up they can soften up enemy units before the rest of my force charges in. So they're definitely worth having, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of the same argument I was kind of making for the composite bows, just having a few shots, even if you don't have any synergies to buff the shooting attack itself, doesn't mean it's not going to be a useful unit for finishing things off or softening things up. And so lastly, the Horde can take, well, there's one more unit besides this, which we'll get to, but the Horde can take a single war machine, which cannot be flying. So you could take a static war machine or kind of a weird, basically a gun shooting chariot type creation. Have you ever taken a war machine for the Horde?
Yes, I have. I've taken a war machine in combination. I took a war machine in combination with the levies. I've moved away from that. I've generally been just taking the levies on their own. However, I'd also consider taking the war machine on its own, simply because I figure if I place it right, then so that if it's shooting in long range, then 4 dice at +1, that could be just as useful, if not more so, than the levies. And it also means I have half a point to spend on something else. The only downside is the war machine doesn't generate a saga dice, which the levies do.
Yeah, I agree. They kind of, that static war machine, is kind of the one that I would favor, but they kind of fill the same role as the levies.
Yeah.
So, kind of my thoughts. I think you probably want two shooters somehow. So if you take composite bows, you could take the levies, leave the static at home. If you're not taking the composite bows, I think you could take the levies and the static war machine. You could see, a certain build or whatever, you really need that extra half point. You could just be like, well, I'll drop the levies. I'll pop in the war machine. It almost kind of does the same thing. And, I can get the big unit over here that I really wanted to get that I couldn't squeeze in. So,
exactly. Yeah, so I mean that's something I'm going to keep experimenting with. I definitely want to keep some shooting in the warband. I mean the levy is also nice because it's just, as per most levy units, it's a tar pit.
Yeah, they can't
stick them in some cover. They can keep shooting away at enemy units, and it's gonna be a pain in the butt to actually get rid of them. So,
yeah, we love our levy, but the last unit is the Mighty Chariot.
Yeah.
Oh, how they crumble, or how they do some damage. So this thing is a beast. It's since been fact. Completely unnecessarily, in my opinion, but I do love it, what they've done. So it generates a saga die. It's armor 5, aggression's 4, in melee 2 for shooting. Don't forget that shooting. It has determination now, thanks to the fact. So you've got some serious efficiency here. Before, it didn't have determination, so it generated a die. So it generates a die, it uses its die that it's generated to move itself around. Now you've got some real efficiency here too, because you can take two of these things. So you got two seriously fighty units, and they're activating on their own. So you have two Saga dice to spend somewhere else. It's just insane. But
and a couple of shooting dice.
Yeah, and you got the shooting. So maybe,
and it
I don't know.
Counts
maybe
as armed with javelins, right?
That stuff I said, about having some shooters. These guys would kind of fulfill that role. So maybe you could drop some of that. But yeah, so to finish it out, it has javelins. It counts as being mounted, but it's still armor 5 against shooting. It's got resilience 1. And a devastating charge here, which we love. Yeah. If it starts the melee with no fatigue, and it's the attacker, is the key thing there. Its aggression is doubled to 8 instead of 4. So that's the kicker there, where it just does way more than it should. I mean, it is a point. I mean, this is probably all fair here, but I love the Chariot. I thought the Chariot was good before, doubly so now. How are you liking the Chariot, and how does it fit in with the 6-point warband?
It's not something I've tried yet. However,
Chris, come on.
Hey, I'm just getting started with Horde. I mean, I've only just built an Isengard force. I think, I'm thinking of the next step would be to field them as Mordor, and maybe and throw in some trolls, or like field a Harad force, and I can have some more cavalry and like a Mumak as a beast. What I've actually thought about doing is at some point doing an Easterling force.
Yeah.
And there was the one in the books. There was one confederation of Easterlings, the Wainriders, that used chariots. So we've got chariots. So I want to do it at some point. I haven't done it yet, but
you gotta make it happen.
Yeah.
They definitely hit hard. They're definitely your opponent. Kind of needs to be aware of them. And so, like against a veteran, they know they got to get a fatigue on that thing before it goes in.
Oh yeah.
Versus. This is kind of a noob crusher machine.
Well, like I already have. I have said I want to do this. I need to get into the crazy frame of mind to actually do it, but do a mounted and chariot-based Gaulish force. I keep saying I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I have some files I know someone who's released some files that I could use. I want to do it. It's just I need to actually get the files and get my printer running and get the things painted off and printed off and painted. So chariots are going to happen at some point. I love chariots. I want to field them on the tabletop. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, these are good. So my kind of opponent that I'm used to playing against, it would take the Warlord on the Beast, the mounted champion, 2 chariots, and then the rest mounted creatures, or maybe a creature on foot. So it was and he's using dinosaurs for most of the models.
Nice.
And that was some white knuckle devastation unleashed for those first few turns, and you didn't know if you could hang on or not because of what they were dishing out. And the chariots were always leading the way. So I've got a healthy respect for them. So glad to hear you'll be adding some to the mix. Highly recommend.
I'd like to try a primarily mounted and chariot based army for the Horde at some point, just because it would be fun. And maybe print out do a couple of units of do a few more units of Warg Riders, and have like half of the army be Warg Riders and like some Levy and warriors and stuff. But I like to play around with mounted troops a bit more in the Horde.
That'll serve you well. All right, so the what's the special stone? Sacrificial Stone. Is there a special thing? Yeah, nothing too crazy. If you're fighting a melee within short of the Sacrificial Stone, So the unit itself has to be within short. It looks like they get a bonus attack. So I mean, that's fine. It's not crazy good like a couple of the other ones. Do you guys usually play with the Sacred Terrain or not?
Yeah, we generally do. That was kind of so we started just playing the factions without any of the additional stuff added, and then once we got the hang of basically using the battle boards and such, then we added the special terrain. So I've used it a few times. I've tried placing it in where I think most of the fighting is going to be happening, and
smack dab, middle of the table. Yeah,
a lot of times I misjudge it. So so far, especially when I've played against my friend who takes the Great Kingdoms, we're usually pretty good at neutralizing each other's sacred ground.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, it's interesting to hear. I think, I don't know, if you're thinking kind of strategically, you might, because it takes up a turn in the universal method, and it doesn't count towards the minimum. I might, as a Horde player, I might just skip over it and just get down, depending on the sequence, and just, I want one less piece of terrain, and, there's one less chance to add a piece of terrain to the board or something like that. If I'm thinking through all that.
I mean, it also depends who you're playing, right? You definitely want as little terrain on the board as possible if you're fighting Lords of the Wild.
Our friends the Wild, of course.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I think we've done it all, so we're going to jump into the battle board in Age of Magic. The tops are all the same, so we're just going down straight to the advanced ability, and we're going to kick it off here with a doozy. Loving it. For the Horde, this is a rare die. Till the end of the turn, all your units increase their charge distance by short and open terrain. And, at some point, that first part, you're going to hate that. But towards the end of the game, it's the second part that's going to start irking you. Your opponents may not use your fatigue to reduce the charge distance.
Oh, yeah.
So that is this is a great ability. Affects the monsters, affects everybody. Early game for the long charges, late game so your charges keep going. They can't be stopped. It is a rare, though, so sometimes you just don't get it when you need it, but that's what Stoke Fury's for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, I think if you assume that getting the additional short of charge distance is absolutely crucial for your plans, and you want to make sure you have that in your first turn, then that's when taking a Sorcerer and having Stoke Fury would be helpful, because you're guaranteeing that you'll get that extra charge distance one way or the other.
Yes. So Stoke Fury for the Horde can absolutely be comboed to add 8 inches. So also, a unit that goes 12 inches, plenty of cav, the flying scourge, what have you. You can do a 20-inch charge, which is awesome. Have you pulled off any crazy long first turn charges that also worked out? And you didn't flub the dice roll when you made it in?
A couple. I think the first few times I used it, the first few times I played the Horde were before I read the FAQ and before I realized that that Let the Blood Run had been FAQ'd, and that had been changed. So I was able to get I was reading the text as it was originally written. So got a couple units in. They messed stuff up, and then I read the FAQ and realized, oh, this is insane. And then every game since then I've just been experimenting with it. So
so this does combo with the next ability we'll be going over.
This is also why I want to, we can return to this in the moment, but this, for the Horde combined with Let the Blood Run is the main reason I want to experiment with just doing an all-mounted Horde army at some point, because it would just be hilarious.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on that. Obviously, charging 16 inches everywhere is awesome, but I like the utility of having foot sloggers still charging 10 inches, which...
True.
The Saga board,
having more cavalry in any case, just that would be fun.
Well, I think a little bit of both is will serve you well, because against a few factions, you're probably going to have to wade into those woods at some point to root them out. So for the Horde, love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing for me, I wanted to try, and the reason I really wanted to try this faction out is because almost all the factions I've played over the years have either been sort of kind of guerrilla warfare oriented, so like the Welsh, the Lords of the Wild, the Spanish, lots of hit and run, lots of tricksy stuff, or have been really defensive, like the Greculi. Which is the main faction I think my favorite faction, Age of Hannibal, so far. So I just wanted to play something that was just out and out aggressive. And so that's kind of been my mentality of, let's just throw things together. Let's just throw a bunch of units forward and crash them into things and see what happens, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to have with the Horde. And I would say this is probably like the most aggressive battle board that has been created in Saga period. I was trying to think, I don't think there's anything. I mean, there's definitely some boards that hit hard, but just the combination of the movement, the charge multi-activation, which we're going to get to right now, and the melee abilities. So let's jump to that one.
Let's jump to that one.
This is Let the Blood Run. This is a common or uncommon activation. Activate any number of your units for a charge. So it's been fact. So I think the board says 2 if you
and
peel it out of the book.
Any number.
And then the wording is a little strange here, but if you have more than 1 fatigue, then you cannot charge. But if you have 0 or 1 fatigue, Let the Blood Run. If you have 2 or more fatigue, you're out. So towards the end of the game, this is probably losing some utility here, but the first Let the Blood Run of the game here, are you going full like 5 plus units charging across here? How do you work this one? What's your...
Depending on the scenario, I mean, not necessarily going to throw my Warlord and his posse forward, but definitely going to throw like at least half my warband forward. I mean,
so this is it could be the first turn, it could be the second turn, half the warband's engaged, and
I mean, it also depends on the scenario that we're playing, because if I'm playing a scenario where I have to capture objectives or something like that, then, obviously this changes. But if I'm just going for massacre points, and throw everything forward. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so this is awesome. There isn't a lot of... I mean, the Underhearth can activate 4 units for 2 dice, but I don't think there's anything else jumping out at me in Age of Magic. This kind of multi-action efficiency.
This is probably the cheapest multi-activation ability on any battle board that I've seen. I mean, the Welsh Warband has 2 multi-activation ability, or 2 abilities that can allow you to activate the whole warband, which is I forget the name. It's a rare, and you can either rest with everybody or make a movement activation with everyone.
Yep, they got something like that.
And that's a rare. Then cavalry or something like I forget what the names are in English because my battle board is
You're
in
trained,
Polish.
yeah, in your mind, yeah, and you look at them.
But yeah, if you have a fully mounted warband, you can activate everything, and 2 uncommons is still very efficient for activating a full 6-point warband, but it's not as efficient as spending a common as you can with this book,
Yeah,
with this board.
you can do some crazy stuff. So this costs a single die. We talked about the chariots. They're activating on their own. They're generating. So you can you can queue this thing up, go in with half your force, and you could still have 3 or 4 dice on activations to do follow-up charges after you saw what happened on the first one. This is wild. This is good.
And I think this is, this is obvious. This is a obvious combo, obvious synergy with for the Horde, because common and a rare, you can activate your entire warband.
More people in range is more charges.
That's insane efficiency. I think the one consideration is this is more likely to succeed when you're the second player.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I found anyways, because
your opponent's not going to voluntarily.
No. So,
but usually 3 dice isn't enough to get a rare and the other die here. So I'm always sweating against Horde. Can they get that rare on the first turn or not? Because it could change the whole dynamic of this battle if that rare comes up or not.
I mean, basically, for 2 dice, you can activate all your units for a charge with the bonus charge distance of S, which is amazing. The main thing is it's dependent on. It's easier to pull this off when you're playing as the second player. Plus, also, if you're playing as again, Lords of the Wild, or in particular, you got to assume that they're not going to. They're Lords of the Wild or Great Kingdoms. Basically, anyone who's got a lot of shooting is probably going to stay as far away from you as possible.
Absolutely,
so you're kind of a bit of friction from your opponent as well.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's jump down to the other ability, which has been Rage. So gain 2 attack dice. If you have 12 attack dice, you used to get 2 more attack dice, but now you get a +1 to your attack dice, which is amazing. I would rather take that +1 any day of the week over 2 more dice, because if you already have 12 attack dice, that's a lot of dice at Age of Magic. And +1. So I'm assuming at some point here you've probably got your Hearthguards to come in, and if you already have a +1, you have another +1 for a +2.
Indeed.
The chariots with their javelins aren't very common in Age of Magic, but the +1, there's a lot of stuff that can't close ranks, so you're probably a +2 with that chariot. If you can swing it, you have to do a little bit more to get that chariot pumped up to get to the 12 number.
Yeah,
you have to do something. You have to do something else, because it starts at an 8. If it's not fatigued, you gain 2 from this. So you need two attack dice from something else, either a spell or one of the other abilities before you pop this. But
it'd probably have to be a spell or something. But it could be done. That would be amazing, definitely.
Okay. Now,
but here's another one.
Here's another one. Yeah. What do you? Let me know.
So heavy weapon. I've seen this played. I had a game where I was playing my Greeks as Great Kingdoms against a new player who's using my Isengard warband, and he charged in with my 6 Hearthguard with heavy weapons, and he charged in against my 2 creatures. Both units wiped each other out. 12 dice hitting on 4+. So they have 4. So armor 4 to begin with, +2 for the
It
for
sets
that,
it at a 2+ against the standard unit.
and used a fatigue to bump it down further.
Yes.
That just wiped out the Minotaurs. They took 12 hits. There was there was no way they were going to shrug that off. But the downside is I wiped that unit out as well. So it was just mutually assured destruction. However, what I haven't gotten a chance to try this yet, is if you just had standard sword and board Hearthguard and you use this, then you'd get the +1 that you would normally have for using heavy weapons while still keeping your armor of 5.
Just like,
so that would be
+1 to hit. Still pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And you got the armor bonus as well.
That is something I'm going to have to try yet. So.
If you have a common, are you going to use this if you're not going to hit the 12 threshold? Just to gain 2 attack dice. Have you ever used it?
Sure. I mean, I think the thing is that you're probably only going to be able to get the +1 bonus once or twice per game, because unless you have multiple units that are either 12 warriors or 6, or at least 6 Hearthguard, or maybe 3 creatures, I guess depending on how you build. In my warband, I only have 1 unit that would qualify for that has 12 attacks anyways. So once they go into their first melee, they're very likely going to lose at least 1 or 2 models, and they're not going to qualify for this. Aside from that, I mean, a common to get 2 attack dice is still a common to get 2 attack dice. That's still pretty efficient.
That's a good point. I think this is good enough with that +1. I might actually kind of build my warband around using this ability. You're kind of torn with Let the Blood Run, because having a ton of small units and just being able to charge them, you spend 1 die, you could charge 6 units, or you could charge 3 units. It's still going off. So you think, well, multiple small units might be the way, and kind of just out fatigue my opponent or something like that. But with the rage here, this is good enough. I might just I'll take the 3 charges, but those are going to be 3 honking units with a +1. So that might be the way that I do it. So something to keep in mind when you're building your force. I think probably having, if you're playing 6, it's probably a little harder, but having, at least maybe two or more units that could take advantage of this would probably be worthwhile. Once you get up to 8 points.
Oh, definitely. Thinking. Well, I still wanted, at some point, I still want to do, I currently have an 8-man unit of warriors with heavy weapons. Like, I've got some Dunlending Axemen. I want to field them as a 12-man unit at some point, so that would be very, very fun.
If you can just get, it depends on the splits and stuff, but even just getting those up to 10 guys, and then with the +2 at this, that would be, it's 2 more guys, 25% more guys, but 50% more hitting power, at the end of the day, something to look at.
Yeah. Except one thing in the ability, I'm trying to remember. I have the original ability in front of me. I don't have the FAQ. Did the because in the original wording it said gain 2 attack dice or if you already have at least 12 attack dice.
Yeah,
how did that carry over into the fact?
Gain 2 attack dice, or if you already have 12. Okay, yeah, I interpreted that wrong. So disregard the thing I said about the 10. Yeah, I think it used to be different. Yeah, you would get both of the effects. So you have to get to 12 before the extra 2 bonus attack dice. You do want the 12-man warrior unit.
But you can still, you could still get like a 10-man warrior unit and get yourself a couple of additional dice through through another ability or through a spell or something. So
you're right. There's a few other ones. There's a couple spells. So something to keep in mind.
Can be done.
Good catch there. It's 2 attack dice or a +1 if you have 12. So important distinction.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Prayers to the Old Gods. You can use any old die for this one. It's a melee ability. Discard up to 4 attack dice to gain an equal number of defense dice. And if you use a rare, just get 2 more on top of it.
Yeah.
So This one is pretty tasty, actually.
Yeah.
Once you start closing ranks, this is quite a pain for the opponent.
Yeah.
Are you using this on the attack? Like, if you have 12 attack dice, are you just knocking 4 off so your Hearthguard can stay alive or something?
So
is that worth it?
If I was using Rage to get 2 additional attack dice, then I'd consider it. But if I'm up to the 12 attack dice, then I'm getting the +1. Then that's it. I'm going all in. I'm not playing defensive. I'm not trying to save those guys. But where I have used it, I have used it to keep my. I have used it fairly successfully to keep my composite bow warriors alive in combat a couple of times. So,
yeah. It's just like the steppe tribes or Eastern Horsemen swapping out 4 attacks for 4 defense dice. Because their mercenary rules.
Yeah. Well, because there isn't anything on the board that buffs their shooting, but there are a couple of abilities, and this is one of them that you can use to run up to the opponent, park them, meet them away, shoot, and then if your opponent charges them, make them a bit tougher than they should be. So that in that way, the board actually does kind of buff them, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think this is a really great ability to have and use, because a lot of times in Age of Magic, units, you just got to eat it. There's a monster coming in fresh. There's 3 creatures coming in fresh. It doesn't matter. You just need to survive until the next turn, until those creatures and monsters exhausted. And so closing ranks is huge. Obviously, this combos awesomely with closing ranks, but a lot of units can't close ranks, so having something like this to kind of simulate that is awesome. At some point you just got to take the licks, and with this up, unit of warriors being charged by a monster. I mean, we could probably figure out the numbers here, but you could see a behemoth coming in and doing nothing if warriors close ranked, and they might get 1 or 2 hits against him. He's got 2 or 3 fatigues at the end of the fight. This is just a very powerful ability. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's situational. It's
definitely, like you said, you're not going to use it every time you charge in with your crap load of dice.
I generally wouldn't use it if I'm charging in at all. I would basically use it if there's a unit that I'm not expecting them to kill stuff. I just want them to not die. Like if I have someone who's composite bows who I'm trying to use to flank and just be annoying, or if I'm trying to hold an objective with a unit, this would be a good one.
All right. Let's pop down to me first. Kind of a strange little ability here. Orders using an uncommon. If the first activation of the turn is a charge, the charging unit gets 4 bonus attack dice in the ensuing melee. So that's pretty cool the way it's worded. You could use it on a monster. And you can also, spells are not activations. So you can stoke fury, you can soup up this unit with violence or whatever and get it going in. It isn't uncommon, I guess. How does that, in your big battle plan here, your scheme of things, how often are you using this one?
Generally speaking, as often as I can. So this ability, I would actually be willing to, if I'm planning on doing multiple charges in the turn, I would pretty much always load up this ability, because if I'm doing multiple charges, then I can just do that from Let the Blood Run, which is a common. And then I also, if I'm gonna do multiple charges in the same turn anyways, might as well get 4 attack dice for one of them, and I could use that to take like a unit of warriors, or even my wimpy composite bow wielding wargs, bump them up to 12 dice and get +1 in the combat. That I think there's a lot of fun stuff you could potentially do with that, or
Yeah.
or if I have a unit of heavy weapon warriors, then they're bad enough when they have the 8 dice with +1 to hit. Well, if you charge them first, then all of a sudden you've got 12 dice. So that and this one
12.
would be I think this one would be very good with warriors or Hearthguard armed with heavy weapons.
Definitely. Every attack with a +1 is, proportionately better than an attack without a +1.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get the chariots up to 12, that magic number, a
Also, yes.
standard size unit.
Yeah.
It does work with the monsters, like I said. I guess the behemoth you probably wouldn't. So you cap out at 16 going in, so behemoth wouldn't gain all the attacks from this, but the titan. So the titans are only got 12, and if you go in fresh, you'd have 16 attacks with armor 5.
Because it's an orders ability, so it gets around the primitive special rule.
Yeah, or the Scourge only has 10 to start with, so that's not enough for me. A 14 would be good way to deliver some hits. So,
or if you want to do like a really fluffy thing and have your warlord be the first one to go in, then
there may very well be
additional dice. Why not?
Before we're done here, there may very well be a reason to do that. So yeah, follow my lead, but that'll be the last one we talk about. But yeah, nice ability here, like the way that it works, and can't complain.
It's in my opinion, it's worth formulating your battle plan for the turn around it, because four additional attack dice for a common is nothing to sniff at.
Yeah.
Or sorry, for an uncommon is nothing to sniff at.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to Shoulder to Shoulder. This is a common and uncommon melee ability. Gain 1 attack and 1 defense die for each friendly unit within very short of your unit. So, typically you might think 2-3 units. You'd have to do some work and chicanery to really squeeze 4 or 5. I mean, it could be done, because every hero, if you're Sorcerer skulking back there with your Warlord, that's 2 there. How many friendly units for each friendly unit? Now, it doesn't say other either, so it counts itself, I would say. Is that how you've been playing it?
I haven't used this one first, but just because...
Yeah, it's 2 die. Everything else we've gone through has been golden. So.
Yeah, it's 2 die. I mean, it's 2 dice, and there's a lot of additional positioning you potentially have to do to make it work. It's sort of like the Wall of Pikes in the Greculi warband, in the sense it's fun. You can it's amazing if you can pull it off, but it's still tricky. If I was going to use it, I'd probably use it on my Warlord and just have him at the center of the formation, charge in. He's got multiple units close by, and he gets additional attack dice for everybody, additional defense dice, plus if one of the units nearby is his Hearthguard, you're just buffing his attack and making it even harder to kill him. So if I was going to use it, I would probably use it on the Warlord.
How many units would you have to have in range for this to be worth it, in your opinion?
I would say at least 2.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty low. I would actually say
I would say
probably
2,
3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said at least 2, and 2 is like just... Again, at 2, if you're using at 2, like a common and an uncommon for 2 attack dice and 2 defense dice is pretty good. But it's still not... I mean, 3 or 4 would be even better. So that's why I think it's easiest to use it with the Warlord, because your Warlord is the one you're most likely to have, like, multiple units around him.
Yeah. I think it can be good. I mean, you could definitely set up a 4, 5, or 6 die situation and 8 points of Age of Magic. But the thing is, with the Horde, you're going to be charging all over with let the blood run on your first turn. So I'm not surprised that you haven't really used it, because within 2 turns, your whole army is split up and fighting on its own for the most part. So it makes it tricky to use, even if it's, fairly costed.
Because I think you'd have to, to make it work, you'd basically have to either move up all of the other units beforehand, or charge in beforehand, because very short, that's difficult to get multiple units in that. I guess you could also, if you had like a big blob of warriors or something like that, then you could do something fun.
Thinking you could do big to get the 4, 5, or 6, a big blob, but it's kind of stationary, like you said. It's the opposite of Me First. It's like the last thing you do is declare the charge with shoulder to shoulder. Because you have to move everything into position. So
I think it's one of the abilities that if you're going to use it, you'd have to really commit to it and plan your turn around it. And it's like Me First, you have to make your turn about that, but Me First, the condition is much easier to fulfill for a similar benefit.
That's funny. Me First is such a funny name for that. I don't know. It sounds like a Muppet or something. Me First. Yeah.
Me First. Yeah.
That's what I imagine. Okay. Let's pop down to Endurance. On common die shooting reaction, your unit counts as being in solid cover during the shooting attack, even if it cannot normally benefit from cover. This is pretty awesome.
Yep.
I would say you're going to get an extra armor on the front end and an extra block, or extra pip on the defense die on the back end. So we know there's some shooty stuff out there that can be delivered to you.
Case in point, one of my first games with the Horde, I used this to charge my Ward Riders up to within composite bow range of a stationary war machine, and then my opponent was just looking forward to blasting the Ward Riders apart with his war machine, and then I played that and his face just fell. So I would say it's awesome on anyone, but in particular, if there's a unit that is supposed to be squishy and easy to shoot, and you can make them difficult to shoot, then that's great.
Yeah. So I definitely wouldn't hesitate to put my Hearthguard on Cav with this ability around.
Yeah.
Rock solid. There is a lot in Age of Magic. Crossbows, firearms. I think the War Machine can only shoot once. The wild, they can typically, I think a good wild player will have a lot of shots, but frequently they'll just default to one super mega attack.
Yeah.
And you can easily, they spend 2 or 3 dice to get that off, and you can spend 1 die to really counter it,
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you might not let anything through. So this is a really good one to have.
Yeah,
in the back pocket.
So that kind of fits in with the theme. I don't while the battle board doesn't have any abilities that buff shooting from composite bows, it does have abilities that make cavalry units or cavalry units with composite bows a lot less squishy. So. It does mean, you can have 1 or 2 units that are just going to be off on the flank somewhere, irritating your opponent. And if they do actually try to do something about it, you can make it more difficult.
Absolutely. So, great ability. We'll pop down to Another favorite here, Iron Will for an uncommon. Activation reaction. Trigger this ability after a charge is declared against one of your units, but before it's resolved, remove a fatigue from the target of the charge. And yeah, this one's awesome. There's not a lot in Age of Magic dealing with fatigues. It can be very difficult to get rid of it. This gets rid of it in the opponent's turn, which is amazing. And yeah, it's activation reaction, so you can use it with monsters. This is one, I guess, I'm assuming I would have this loaded up probably pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Great for the exhausted creatures or monsters. You know, when they're going to go in to finish it off, you just, I'm not exhausted anymore, so I'll just be hitting you without the -1, thank you.
Yeah.
You got to get 3 wounds through instead of 1 with the resilience 2. Another reason for the Warlord on a Beast, in my opinion. You know, he can really benefit from this as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would say this would be. This is what I would use on. This is definitely. I would use this if I was trying to. Mostly to like protect a warlord or creatures or something with resilience, because you're not gonna, especially when you're trying to keep your warlord alive, having 1 less fatigue and not being exhausted and being able to take just that 1 wound, that's a big deal potentially. So
yeah,
and if you have something with like resilience. You know, if you have creatures or a monster with resilience too, then it becomes even better.
So good. So good. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. The bigger your unit, the more bang for your buck you're going to get, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Another one, Power of Steel. So we've been saying there's no shooting buffs, but I actually see this can be used for shooting.
Yeah.
You have to let me know if you've tried it. It's an uncommon or rare melee or shooting. If the enemy unit's armor is 5 or more, you can reroll 1s or 2s. And you can reroll them all if you use a rare. So, I love rerolls. Rerolling 1s and 2s is good enough for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've used this before, but I could definitely see myself using it on the Levy. Like if I can, activate the Levy from the Warlords We Obey and spend this spend the dice on this ability instead, then it means I can launch 6 shots against like enemy's foot Hearthguard or something like that, and re-roll the 1s and 2s and make them a bit of a softer target. So that could be fun. Or taking out trying to take out a warlord or something like that.
Yeah, I think the warlord, the monsters, the creatures, you just need to do 1 or 2 or 3 wounds to go through, but you're not using their fatigue to take them down because you got to leave it. So this is when the Power of Steel comes into play. And you ever put a rare here or no?
I would consider it. I mean, I think the thing is, I would only consider using this ability in the first place if I didn't have to spend an additional die to activate the unit. So if it's a shooting unit and I can activate them from the Warlords We Obey or something like that, then that's pretty awesome. 6 shots from a unit of Levy, re-rolling 1s and 2s, or spending a rare and re-rolling everything. That's pretty awesome. War Machine, 4 dice plus 1 to hit. 4 dice plus 1 to hit. Re-rolling 1s and 2s, that could be really nasty. So I could see myself using this, but if I was going to, I'd probably want to be keeping the Warlord fairly close to the shooting unit I'm going to use it on, just so I don't have to spend 2 dice to get a powered up shooting attack.
Sure. Now, I should mention, This will be helpful for beginners. You got to be careful with the interaction of the heavy weapons, and rage can actually work against you on this one. So the +1 to hit modifies your die. So if you have heavy weapons or rage going, you add a +1. So it's impossible for you to roll a 1, because if you roll a 1 on the die, it's a 2. And if you had both of them going on, you might think in your head that you're gonna, it's the perfect combo, but it's actually the worst combo, because you won't be able to roll 1s or 2s if you have both of those queued up. So it kind of pick your avenue of attack. You're going to use rage, or you're going to use power of steel. If you have heavy weapons, you might want to reconsider, or make sure you have a rare on there to power it through instead of just the base ability.
Like, I wouldn't use this if I had heavy weapon Hearthguard. I would consider using this if I was using sword and board Hearthguard, because then, let's say let's say I'm going against, got 12 Hearthguard, I take them into, or I've got 6 Hearthguard, I'm taking them into combat against another 6 Hearthguard, or a monster or something like that. I get +1, for the... Okay, I take him into combat with another 6 Hearthguard. Because of the +1 from rage, I'm already hitting on 4-ups, and then I can reroll 1s and 2s. So if I roll a 3, I don't get anything, but that's still significantly increasing my odds. So that would be worth it, I think.
That'd be all right. Sure. Yeah. And any reroll ability, the more dice you're throwing, the better.
Yeah.
It's going to become, because you have more options for the reroll. So
all
right.
But I think it's also one of those that you kind of have to. I mean, because it's a common or because it's an uncommon or a rare, I think you might want to. It's also one you'd potentially want to plan for beforehand, and maybe just put a die on the ability at the beginning of the game, and just wait for the opportune moment to use it.
Sure, yeah. I agree with that. It's one that'll come into play at some point. So, and it'll kind of make your opponent reconsider increasing their armor with your fatigues as well.
Also, yes.
Since if you plan it at the beginning, they're not going to want to take their warriors to armor 5, because all of a sudden you're going to get a bunch of rerolls triggered.
So the psychological warfare with your opponent is also a dimension.
Absolutely. Well, last up we have Follow My Lead. 2 die. This is a common and a rare, which is not a very common Saga dice combination that you see.
No, it's not.
It's melee for heroes only. If you win this melee, all your units get 2 bonus attack dice and 2 bonus defense dice during every melee until the end of the turn. So that applies to the monsters as well. We're always thinking about our monsters. So the Warlord is a hero. If you transform your Sorcerer into a giant monster, well, if it's a monster, you wouldn't be able to trigger the ability. So you'd want to just cap it at Warlord on a beast, so you can still use Follow My Lead. That's the key thing there.
Yeah.
We have the champion, and then both of the chariots count as heroes. So you've got quite a few options here to get this going. The downside is it's 2 dice, one's a rare, and it doesn't actually do anything for the melee that it's used in.
No.
But all you have to do to win is not die. That's how a hero wins, right? Well, you gotta cause a wound.
If you win you still have to win the melee. You have to be basically, as long as you're not forced to withdraw, then it goes off.
Yeah. So the hits you take from resilience and save, like those don't count for winning the combat. So all you have to do is kill one guy.
Yeah. So don't. In that context, don't die. Don't lose your lose your Warlord and kill at least one model, and you're good.
And you'll get this off. So
unless they closed ranks, in which case your hero might still bounce off, right?
Well, you always got to roll some dice, right?
Yeah.
You can never be certain. But Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we do it? Me first, follow my lead, and then let the blood run. So all
Yeah.
your 4 to 6 charges.
Yeah. That could work.
So it takes some setting up because frequently you might have to expose your hero. So it's 2 dice. It's a rare. How often do you get this off?
I haven't used this one yet. I think it's because, as you're saying, it would require some setting up to do. I mean, the combo that you've talked about is 4 Saga dice right off the bat. I think if I was gonna do it, I would. I might actually not even play it on my Warlord. I might send my champion off to beat the crap out of some.
He can get the job done.
Yeah,
6 attacks.
Send my champion off to go beat the crap out of some Levy. And then I think this is kind of like you really have to pick your target with this because you have to choose a melee that you've got I'd say a very good chance of winning just because you don't want to spend a common and a rare just on on a melee that is a toss up. You want to send your Warlord into a melee that you're pretty sure you're going to win.
Yeah, so you can't send it against a monster or a creature or something unless it's absolutely exhausted because you have to actually kill it. So you're looking at Levy or warriors. You're kind of looking at the other guy's board, seeing what he's got queued up for defensive abilities.
Yeah, so that would be awesome. So I mean that's how I'd consider using it. And it could be a lot of fun, but it would require some setting up to do. So now I kind of want to try this out in my next game and see if I can get it set up.
I think the other tough thing is the rare die. So I think for the Horde automatically scoops up the rare because we got prayers to the old ones, power of steel. I think probably follow my lead is maybe second after the Horde, but for the Horde is so good. It's going to make the difference in so many charges just having that extra short where But again, I mean follow my lead could work. Follow my lead could work really well later on in the game because for the Horde, I would only say you're going to use that in the first couple of turns anyways. So you're right there.
I mean that would be my opinion anyways. Like for the Horde, it's just turn 1, turn 2, get everybody in, and then by that point, once you get past that it's not going to matter. You're close enough to everything that it won't matter as much. Follow my lead could be fun later on in the game, though. Yeah,
especially then too. You can just send your Warlord into like a little 2 or 3 man warrior units just to finish them out. Just little chintzy units that can't even like really threaten you, and you just kind of wipe them out.
Well,
and so
one thing I'm noticing. I would also say about the battle board is that the FAQ of Let the Blood Run actually makes this board work a lot better because the fact that you can spend 1 common and activate every single unit in your warband makes it a lot easier to justify a lot of these other abilities. Like, I would be much more hesitant about using Follow My Lead if I also had to find dice to do charges with my other units, and if I had to was wanting to add some other ability to buff it, but
well, I think the chariots too. Both of them having determination. So like my local guy, he took the 2 chariots every time, anyways. Before that, so you think for him, that's probably like a 3 or 4 or 5 Saga dice swing to he can do the same thing he could do before, but now he has 3 or 4 more Saga dice to spend to soup it up or to follow up all his attacks. So, we are at the end of the battle board. I think the Horde have the tools to. I think they got what it takes to take down anyone.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I mean, we all have trouble with the Great Kingdoms. It's known. There's no surprise there, but.
Well, I mean, one of the things that's been kind of interesting is because I've played a few games with a new player in our group where I've given him the Horde to play, and I've been playing the Great Kingdoms, not because like I thought they were overpowered, but mostly because I just wanted to try using my Greeks in Age of Magic, and I thought it would be fun. But like through playing against the Horde, like I've gotten the opportunity to play as the Horde, but also play a few games against the Horde, and so that like has helped me figure out some things with the battle board a bit as well. So
yeah, playing against the Horde is scary because you never know like how crazy they're gonna be, you know, because I mean, you can charge a lot, but you can certainly overdo it. But, you know, sometimes when you overdo it, it just works.
Yeah.
You know, it works anyways because you're putting fatigue on the enemy, you're putting fatigue on yourself, and you're kind of wearing them down. There's no good way to get rid of it. So it's kind of a fine line trying to figure out when to dial it back if you should. But I'm definitely
I just thought of another awesome way you could use for the Horde, even later on in the game. If you're playing someone who's got, for example, Lords of the Wild, and they've parked a lot of units in cover, as Lords of the Wild are wont to do, it's going to be a lot easier to get into combat if you can, you know, do a charge of short plus short than if, you know, you've just got short. So maybe that's something I would consider doing.
Well, for the Horde, it has to be an open terrain.
Oh, never mind. Never mind. That was okay. Disregard that. My hot take was not.
What you do for the Horde then is you just charge the unit out in the open next to the woods.
Yeah.
And then you're all set and ready to mosey on in. Yeah. And your follow-up move with all the extra Saga dice you have because you're so efficient in all your movements.
I definitely want to use this. I would definitely use for the Horde if I was playing Great Kingdoms because the games especially with Great Kingdoms, you've got to get into combat with them as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you're just going to get shot to death, and that's not fun. So,
especially if they're running the Levy shooters, you just got to get in there, start grinding.
Yeah,
get the battle on your terms. That's just the way it is.
So, but you know, it's still fun to use. I mean, my attitude to playing with them was, let's just be super aggressive and throw things forward and, you know, break stuff and see what happens. And I'm just trying to get as efficient as I can at throwing units forward and using them to break stuff. Absolutely. You know, so, but it's kind of, I mean, way back in the day, I played when I was playing Warhammer 40K, then the first army I played was the Orcs, and kind of my assumption with them is, you know, regardless of whether they win or they lose, it's going to be a fun game, so I'll just throw them for it and see what happens.
Orcs is always the best.
Yeah,
we know.
If we win, we win. If we die, we die fighting, so it don't count. And if we lose, we get to run away to fight again another day. So, absolutely. You know, that's kind of the attitude I've taken with the Horde. It's just
so. The Horde, a lot of fun. I think they can take it to anybody. There's a lot of stuff we didn't cover. The legendary units, the legendary builds. We didn't really dive deep on the spells. There's just so much going on here. We've already been talking for quite a while here.
Yeah, we have been.
Eventually, there'll probably be a part 2 to one of these at some point with that additional stuff. But we're going to call it here for now. I want to thank the patrons, specifically Terry, Patrick, Sean, Mitchell, Kevin, and Scott. Wouldn't be doing these extra faction review videos without you and the rest of the Heathen army. So thanks, guys. And if you play the Horde, I want to know what your army composition is. So comment below if there's anything we missed as far as the strategies here used. If you like to take different spells than what Chris was saying there, I'd be curious to hear. There's a lot of shenanigans, especially with the earth magic there. There's a few janky things you can do that I think could play well with the Horde. So, I'd be curious to hear that. And we're going to call it here. Thanks again, Chris. We've gone above and beyond with this faction review, my man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll have you on again at some point, I'm sure. Hopefully I'll see you in person here. Are you good? Yeah. Are you going to make it to Adepticon, Chris? Once you go to the U.S., that's mandatory.
I don't know if I'm going to make it to Adepticon, but now that I am in the U.S., I do want to try and make it to one of the big Saga tournaments. So I think probably I'd like to make it. I know there's a Saga community down in Southern California, so I'm going to try and make it down there at some point. So that'll probably be the first place that'll probably be the first destination. Then we'll see what happens after that.
Keep an eye on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll keep an eye on you. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Saga!
If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.